Hey folks, it's John, and you ought to know what fish are okay to put with Oscars. Last week on You Ought to Know, I told you that there were two questions that are asked to me more than anything else. One was, how do you get your fish to grow really fast? And two, can you put blank with Oscars? Last week we talked about how to get your fish to grow really fast. I'll put a card up here if you haven't seen it yet. This week we're going to talk about the fish that you can put with Oscars. Good tank mates for Oscars. It's a pretty simple answer, but then again it's not. The reason I say it's not is because there's a few things that you have to think about when it comes to Oscars before you make your decision of what you're going to put in there with them. The first is Oscars are a South American cichlid. And what does that mean? Well, because they are a cichlid, it means that you never really know for sure what their temperament's going to be. You might have one that's a sweetheart and then decides not to be a sweetheart anymore. Now, I've had more Oscars than I can count, and I've always known them to pretty much leave the other fish in the tank alone. But there are tons of stories out there of Oscars wiping out an entire tank. So understand that no matter what I say here about my experiences, there's always going to be a chance that your Oscar could turn to the dark side. But don't let that scare you. I mean, I've always known Oscars to pretty much get along with anything. But again, add tank mates at your own risk. Another thing to think about is Oscars do not discriminate when it comes to what they will put in their mouth. And that just got a little weird. But what I'm saying is, if you put a small enough fish in the tank to where it can fit in the Oscar's mouth, it will eat that fish. So if you do that, don't be mad at your Oscar. That is your fault.
That's just dumb.
Last thing to think about is that Oscars grow super fast. They can get almost a foot long in just 1 year. So keep that in mind. If you put them with a bunch of fish that are notoriously slow growers, your Oscar outgrows them and gets really hungry. Okay, so now you know that Oscars are South American cichlids, so you have to watch their attitude. You know that they're gonna grow super fast, and you know they will eat anything they can fit in their mouth. Now we can get on with the list of tank mates. Here's what I've decided to do. Instead of turning to Google to come up with a list of tank mates, which would be cheating, I've decided to give you a list of fish that I personally have kept with Oscars, and understand that I haven't had a problem with the Oscars in these situations. The only problems I've ever had are the tank mates attacking the Oscars. I've kept Oscars with silver arowanas, which I'll be doing again very soon. I can't wait. Jack Dempsey's, jaguar cichlids, red devils, severums, bala sharks, firemouths, convicts, common plecos, and even a Buddha I've even kept Oscars with Florida gars and stingrays. Again, I'll be doing that again very soon. Like I said, the only problems I ever had were never the Oscar towards the other fish. It was always the other fish towards the Oscars, and it was always red devils. I don't know. But your story might be different. Let me know the tank mates that you've had with Oscars and how it's worked out for you. Put them down in the comments below. I'm setting up a 400-gallon aquarium in the very near future, and in that tank I'm gonna have 2 silver arowanas, 2 freshwater stingrays, and 3 Oscars. And guess what? It's not the Oscars that I'm worried about at all. Yeah, just watch. I'll end up getting the 3 demon Oscars and they end up killing my super expensive arowanas and stingrays. That's my luck. If you want to see that tank, you should definitely click the subscribe button down below and ring the bell. Make sure that you get notified when I start putting up videos all about setting up that tank. Okay, so I know I'm gonna get a ton of people in the comment section that are gonna ask, what is that fish right there? Well, that is a Nile tilapia named Timmy, and it belongs to my friend Jason from Primetime Aquatics. He was nice enough to send me this clip a while ago for the 10 Things episode we did all about Oscars. I'll put a link in the description to that video, as well as Jason's channel. You should definitely check it out. And yes, those are peacocks in the tank with the Oscars, as well as the tilapia, some jewels, a red empress, and geophagus. So if you want to take a little risk, you can add those to the list too. People are gonna say in the comments, you can't put peacocks with Oscars. Well, yes you can. There they are. Sure, it's not ideal, and neither Jason or I would recommend that you do that, but the video just kind of proves that it can be done. I've heard crazier stories, believe me. So there you go. Now you've got some ideas for good tank mates for your Oscars. Like I said earlier, if you have tank mate suggestions for Oscars, put them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear all the different stories of what people have kept with their Oscars. We put out a new episode of You Oughta Know every single week, so if you like this kind of content, click the subscribe button, hit that bell to get notifications whenever our videos come out. Hopefully I'll have a special guest for next week's You Oughta Know. Probably be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching. I look forward to talking to you next week. I'll tell you something else you ought to know.